Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Triple Threat Show. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is a beautiful Friday, June 27th. It has been our standard one day since we were last live, and let me tell you, a lot has happened. The NBA draft has finished up. We now have our winners and losers that we'll go over. There were a bunch of teams that I thought did a really good job in this year's NBA draft. We'll talk about them. There were a couple teams that I thought didn't do quite as well. We'll talk about all of that, as well as getting into the future of Aaron Rodgers. He said on the Pat McAfee show a couple of days ago that this was, quote, probably going to be his last season. We'll talk about if he's for real or not. We've done this dance a couple times with him, and if it is, where this leaves him in the annals of NFL history as far as quarterbacks go. We'll then jump into the world of baseball. MLB Power Rankings hot off the presses here for you. We'll get into all of that and more coming up here in just a second. But we're going to start off with the NBA draft. A lot of stuff to get into here, but the winners, as always, we start out with. And there were a couple of teams that I thought did just an amazing job. And I'm going to start off with the team that obviously had a free win in front of them. The Dallas Mavericks. The Dallas Mavericks won this draft because they had the first overall pick, because they got the best player in this draft, and because they had the rights to select one Cooper Flag. It's good that they didn't mess this up. Now, I wasn't 100% worried that they were going to. They were going to select Cooper Flag regardless of what was going on here. You pair Cooper Flag now with Anthony Davis, Daniel Gafford, and Derek Lively in that in that front court. It is very much an elite defensive unit there, along with some offensive upside. You're going to have Kyrie Irving back by the time of the playoffs. It's going to be a short-term contender in the West because of Cooper Flag. They moved off of Luka, which still a bad decision. But having Cooper Flag as a prize because of that, he's not going to be Luka-esque. He's not going to be a top 3 player in the league. But what he is going to be able to do is be one of those guys that carries you into the future and helps you build around. He's not necessarily going to be a number one ball dominant kind of guy, but what he does off the ball, what he does with the touches that he gets as a passer, as a shooter, as a creator, it really is impactful, and I think he's going to be, obviously, the best player in this draft class. Another team that I thought did a really good job just because of how obvious the picks were was the Spurs. They were able to go get Dylan Harper, and Dylan Harper might be the best player in this draft. He is going to be a kind of guy that the Spurs had to take, regardless of having reigning Rookie of the Year Stephon Castle, trading for De'Aaron Fox, who is on an expiring deal. So I'm curious if they're going to hold on to Fox or not. I know they gave up a little bit to go and get him last season, but I don't know if they're really going to extend him too much depending on how well a guy like Dylan Harper does. But I also like their other picks in this draft. They went out and they continued to get more and more talent around Wemby, build a team where you can just have all of the depth that you need. They were able to shore up a lot of holes that team had. I really do love what the Spurs were able to do here. I think they're going to be a team in the West and we've been saying this for a long time with Wemby, if he can stay healthy, they're going to take that next step. Wemby might be an MVP candidate next year. It's going to be real good over there in San Antonio. Another team that I thought did really well, this one just based on their picks, how about the Phoenix Suns? The Phoenix Suns get Kaman Maluach at pick number 10. He was a guy that I think was a top 5 talent in this draft. He is someone that slipped all the way to 10. Now, he slipped there. Honestly, I'm shocked that he made it to that point, but the Suns, they ran up there and they got that pick in. I love that for them. I really do. You get a rim-protecting big who can have a little bit of an effect as just a down-low kind of Rudy Gobert-style big down there, rim protection, and can put it in on offense because of his size. He's still learning a little bit, but getting him at pick 10, you immediately shore up that center position, which was one of the worst in the entire league. But then they went out and they got Mark Williams. And I know Mark Williams hasn't really been healthy, but you add him and Kaman Maluach, so you don't necessarily need him to be healthy. You're not counting on him to be healthy 100% of the time. And I know it's a bit of a risk, but they needed to go get some depth there. Now they have a really, really good center room. They needed that. They have good guards. They have Booker. They have Beal. They have Grayson Allen. They traded for Jalen Green. They have all of these guys on their team that can play the point, can play shooting guard, can play wing, but they needed some size on defense. They have a real chance to do a terrifying double big lineup down there. It's not necessarily what's most likely going to happen. I doubt those two see the floor together, but what this team is setting up for, what the Suns have as far as a potential for their roster, I really, really do like. Another team I thought that killed it, how about the Utah Jazz? And this is one that has been talked about a whole bunch, right? This is one that has been talked about because of the ruthlessness, right, of these trades that they made. These are ones that I really, really do. I really, really am a big fan of. You go out and you get Ace Bailey, who was a consensus top 3 prospect in this draft by a lot of people. He is someone that still is a little bit raw, but was probably the highest upside player on this board. Not only that, but you get another high upside player in Walter Clayton Jr., right? You get these guys that step up, play great basketball, especially in clutch moments, which is what you're looking for. These are guys that you really are expecting to step up big for this team, a young team that does not have a true number 1 option. I know it's Utah. I know Ace Bailey isn't happy, and I know that's the big story coming out of this draft. But what the Ainge family did over there, both Danny Ainge and his son, was really good for this Utah Jazz team. They were able to make some smart trades, as is the staple of a Danny Ainge team, and they were able to bring in some really solid players like an Ace Bailey. I'm curious how it's going to go. There's a chance he holds out here. I doubt he does. He wasn't at summer camp workouts yet. That's going to start in a couple of days. On Monday, he has to be there to report. So we'll see if he makes it there. Otherwise, this is just kind of a story of a kid wanting to go somewhere, it not working out. And a lot of times we see that, right? This isn't the first time a player hasn't been happy to go to where they got drafted, but a lot of times it just works out where they play out their couple years and then they sign somewhere else, or they end up really liking it. They stay there, they sign another contract. It's not unheard of. I like this situation a lot for the Jazz. I think they did a really, really good job when it comes to this draft, getting Ace Bailey, getting Walter Clayton Jr. I think those two guys are going to be a part of a really good core. Now, the one downside with the Jazz here, I will say, is with Walter Clayton Jr. now in there, you have a lot of guards that need to get fed. You have 5 or 6 guards, young guards, that you're going to have to move off of a couple of them, especially if you do like Walter Clayton Jr. like that. He's someone that you're going to want to get touches to, even though he is a bit of an older guard. But Ace Bailey is going to get a lot of minutes with the Utah Jazz, a place like he wanted to be a star. I know he wanted to go to the Wizards, the Nets, or the Pelicans, but he can be a star in Utah. They haven't had a star over there, or a consistent star, I should say, since they moved off of Donovan Mitchell. It's been a long time, and the Jazz they're a good fan base over there. They've always supported the team pretty solidly, especially when they're good. Getting Ace Bailey, getting Walter Clayton Jr., I think that's a really good draft from Danny Ainge over there, and I think they deserve a lot of props for what they did. A couple other teams that I thought did good, rapid fire mode. The Kings getting Nick Clifford later on in the draft. He's a guy that could have been a lottery pick. He's a guard that can go and fill out the De'Aaron Fox style role. I really think that's something that they desperately needed. Of course, after trading Fox away to the Spurs, the Thunder getting Thomas Sorber, I'm a big fan of. They didn't need a lot. They obviously just won the championship with one of the deepest rosters that I have ever seen. But you add that to a room with Chet and Isaiah Hartenstein, that's a pretty good big room right there. And you let Sorber grow a little bit. He's more of a defensive big than anything. But as a pure rim protector, you get that at pick 15 out of Georgetown. I do like what he's able to do. There's a lot of good coming out of this draft, but it was not all good. There were a couple of teams that made some mistakes, no doubt about it. We'll talk about them and the rest of the NBA draft losers coming up in just a second here on the Triple Threat Show. Welcome back to the Triple Threat Show. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus, here with you on a beautiful Friday, June 27th. If you are just tuning in, we just finished going over the winners of the NBA draft. We go over the other side of the coin here, the losers, because there were a couple teams that had some not so good moments in the NBA draft. We're going to start off, of course, with the one that everyone is talking about, the Brooklyn Nets. The Brooklyn Nets are by far the biggest losers in this draft class. They had a historic amount of picks, 5 to be exact. That is 5 number 1 picks in this year's draft. That is an incredible amount of picks, the most, in fact, in NBA history. 5 in one draft. They had pick 8, 19, 22, 26, and 27. They took Igor Demon at pick 8 out of BYU, Nolan Traore at pick 19 out of France. Those two guys right there play the same position. Those two guys right there play a pass-first, ball-dominant guard. And one of them could not work. And if you like that kind of pass-first option, that's fine. We've seen it work in the past. We saw it work this season with a guy like Tyrese Halliburton. But the thing with Tyrese and the thing that these guys like Traore and Demon don't have is Tyrese Halliburton also is a knockdown shooter. Demon and Traore, not the greatest shooters in their class. Well, I think at least one of them has the chance to turn out. Drafting both of them, not developing both of them by getting both of them minutes at the same time, it's not going to work like that. These guys need to develop their shots. They need to get time in the NBA in minutes in order to develop that kind of shot. I think these guys are fine draft picks, but together, it doesn't make a lot of sense. They take Drake Powell at pick 22. I like Drake Powell. I think this is the kind of guy that could be productive for them. I think this was their best pick of the draft. But it also wasn't a knockout pick. At pick 8, they could have gone out and gotten somebody like a Kaman Malawach because they need a center down there. They could have gone out and gotten some guys that could spread the floor a little bit for them. I know they have some shooters in Cam Thomas and guys like that, but they need to go out and get some more guys that can play some defense, can spread the ball around, be a little bit of a passer, which is kind of the idea behind an Igor Demon and a Nolan Traore, but getting both of them kind of doesn't make a lot of sense to me unless you're expecting one of them not to work out and already having insurance plans. They also had back-to-back picks at 26 and 27 where they took Ben Deriff and Danny Wolf. Now, Danny Wolf is an interesting one. He's a 7-footer coming out of Michigan. Danny Wolf, of course, was kind of a primary ball handler. He doesn't have the greatest shot, but he is a switchable big, which is really important to have in the NBA. I think he's one of the more intriguing picks of this draft. I'm not super high on him because, again, like just about everybody else in this class, these guys struggle shooting the ball. And I know the Nets have plenty of shooters already, so they might not have wanted to crowd the room of shooters. But to get a guy like Danny Wolf, pair him up with these 3 other picks in Igor Demon, Nolan Traore, and Ben Deriff, those guys kind of play similar positions. Danny Wolf can play center. Danny Wolf can play power forward. Because of his size, he's going to be able to switch, guard the centers, maybe even switch out to the wings a little bit and guard on the perimeter. But he's not going to be elite at any of those. He's not elite at anything. He's just pretty great at everything. And that's a solid thing to have with Danny Wolf. But overall, when you look at what the Nets could have done with their 5 picks in this draft, again, the most picks ever in an NBA draft, it is just disappointing more than anything. It's one of those things where it feels like they wasted an incredible ability to trade up. You know, we were expecting a big trade. The Nets could have moved up potentially, get that number 3 pick that they ended up giving away to the Philadelphia 76ers because the Sixers were bad enough, right? Maybe they could have found a way to trade up to number 2 and get Dylan Harper. Maybe they could have found a way to trade up with some of those teams in the top 5, right? This is something that this is something that they should have probably considered, and I'm sure they did. I'm sure they were doing some calls, but the fact that they stood pat with the players that they got. They stood pat at the picks that they had and got the players that they got when there were other players available. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. There were talented players or much higher touted prospects that went right behind them many times in this draft. There were a lot of big swings. They could all result in big misses. Maybe this goes out as an entirely new starting lineup for them, and maybe this is going to age as the greatest draft class in the history of the NBA if they all hit. But that is a very unlikely situation because of how this team plays, because of how these guys specifically would mesh together. I don't necessarily love the fit together. I don't necessarily love exactly what they were doing over there. There's a lot to work on, and I don't think the Nets nailed it at all. They had a real opportunity to turn their franchise around. Instead, it feels like they're middling again. It feels like they're making the same mistakes over and over and over and over and over again. Just like they did last decade, it seems like they're going to be stuck in bad to mediocre once again. But another loser, the other team that I thought was a big loser, was the New Orleans Pelicans. And it wasn't necessarily because of the players that they got. I like Jeremiah Fears. I think he's a really solid piece over there for them. They trade for Jordan Poole. They still have DeJounte Murray, so I'm not sure exactly where he's going to fit in. But I like Jeremiah Fears. I think that's a good pick for them. They also get Derek Queen. I like Derek Queen. I think he's going to step up and play a solid center/forward for them. I think that's a good spot for him to be. But the caveat with the Pelicans is they had to give up maybe the most important asset that they had to get Derek Queen. And Derek Queen is a guy that they thought about picking at 7, and instead they traded to go get at pick 13 with the Hawks. But they gave up an unprotected 2026 first-round pick. And not only is it a Pelicans unprotected first-round pick, a Pelicans team that just had the seventh pick in the NBA draft, a Pelicans team that was just in the bottom of the league in the entirety of the NBA this season, and had a really good shot of picking top 5 in the lottery. But they also have the ability now to swap that pick with the Milwaukee Bucks. Whichever one is a better pick, do the Hawks now. Now, generally, the Bucks you might expect to be better, but the Bucks, most likely, it seems, with everything that's going on, are going to trade Giannis Antetokounmpo. And even if they don't have a lot of depth. They won't have a guy like Damian Lillard to help out Antetokounmpo. He's going to be fine. Giannis is going to be good, but I don't know if he's going to be on the Bucks. And depending on the return that the Bucks get for Giannis, it's going to be a bad year in Milwaukee. So now the Atlanta Hawks get the guy that they wanted at 23. They also get the best pick between the Pelicans and the Bucks next season. That is one of the most insane trades that I have seen really ever right now. It's not good, right? Like Howie R. Bears is saying in the chat, it's going to be a top 4 pick next year, right? That is the reason they lost the draft, right? They had really good picks. I like the 2 guys that they got. I like Fears. I like Queen. But when you put those 2 guys together, it's not necessarily going to make them a great team it's not going to make them a great team right away. They're also in the midst of selling. I know they added Poole, but they're talking about potentially selling everybody. And even if the Pelicans somehow find a way to turn it around, if Zion is healthy and he's still there and they turn this into a good season, like I said, the Bucks are going to trade Giannis. And then they're going to be really bad. So either way, this is an awful trade for them. They give up what was going to be a top 5, most likely, definitely a lottery pick, most likely top 5 pick there. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me at all. It really doesn't. It really doesn't. The other loser, and just to touch on it real quick, is just the NBA. We're talking about trades right now. Like, I hate how the NBA does their trades. It's super confusing. I watch the draft all the time, right? I watch the draft. I prepare for the draft. I do mock drafts. I'm here covering the NBA draft. But what they do with their hats, what they do with the trades where they don't process it, where the number 10 pick that got traded to the Suns in that Kevin Durant trade was announced as the Rockets pick. These trades that happen on draft day, these guys are drafted by the teams that are trading them away. It doesn't make any sense at all. Do it like the NFL does, even if it's not official yet. Like, these trades are going to go through. The teams that are trading are making the pick. These teams that are trading are making the pick for them, and it is looking like these other teams are making it. Howie in the chat says the Nets had 5 picks in the top 27 and got 0 starters. That's right. We just finished talking about that. How even if a couple of those guys hit, it's not going to work. It's not, just doesn't work out. Those are the two biggest losers of the draft, the Nets and the Pelicans. But it also just was a disappointment. We didn't get a lot of draft day trades, and the trades that did go through, they weren't super big. We were expecting potentially trades in the top 5. We were expecting the Nets maybe, or the Wizards, or the Pelicans to move up to get a guy like Ace Bailey. Instead, he goes to the Jazz, who I think had a really good draft, like we were saying earlier on in the show. There are a lot of things that I think teams did right in this draft, but I think the Nets and the Pelicans overall just really killed it. They had they really ruined their shot to make a solid draft, especially the Nets. The most picks ever, like we were saying, in one draft in NBA history. 5 of them. 5 picks in one NBA draft, the most ever, and they got just about nothing of value here. It was a mess, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. Outside of the Nets and the Pelicans, were there any teams that you thought had a particularly bad or a particularly good draft? We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we turn our attention over to the NFL. A big story coming out about Aaron Rodgers a couple of days ago. He went on the Pat McAfee show, and he said most likely, keywording there, most likely, this was going to be his last season in the NFL. We'll listen to what he had to say, break it down, and go through the dance with Aaron Rodgers just one more time. We'll be right back here on the Triple Threat Show.
that's why we just did a 1-year deal. Steelers didn't need to, put any extra years on that or anything. So, this was really about finishing with a lot of love and fun and peace for the career that I've had.
Okay. That should do it. All right. I apologize for that. A lot of things going wrong here on the sound. A lot of stuff going on. Let's get back into it here. Like I was saying, Aaron Rodgers is a very polarizing figure in the media. We heard the clip that he said where he was, quote, most likely. Most likely. All right. I apologize for that. A lot of things. He said he was most likely going to be this was most likely going to be his final season here in the NFL, and he said he was going to do it with the Steelers. They said they gave him a 1-year deal because of that. Now, if this is indeed his final stop in the NFL, we have to take a look at this objectively, because a lot of what he's done in the media, a lot of the polarization that is Aaron Rodgers, has taken away from just the incredible, just the amazing stuff that he's been able to do over the course of his career, right? It is insane how great of a quarterback he is. You look at all-time stats, how it stacks up is just the counting stats, right? You have 65% completion percentage. That's tied for 19th best in NFL history, and that is his worst stat, 65.1%. He's 7th, would most likely going to be climbing up those ladders when it comes to the yardage at 65,952. He's most likely going to finish around 5th place, even with just one more season. In touchdowns thrown, he's in 5th place. 503 touchdowns. He might climb that ladder even more. He's pretty close to the guy in 4th place. But when it comes to interceptions, and this is the thing that he's the best at, first in NFL history, Aaron Rodgers is first in NFL history for touchdowns to interception ratio. Now, he has 116 interceptions, but 503 touchdowns, 1.4 touchdowns for every interception. He does not make mistakes like that. That is what has made him such an incredible quarterback when it comes to NFL history. He is that guy. There's a reason that people are giving him chance after chance after all of the stuff in the media chaos that he caused with the Jets, leaving the Packers, all of that. There's so much chaos that comes with him, bringing him into your building, but it's a risk that is worth it, because if you get good Aaron Rodgers, a 4-time NFL MVP, a Super Bowl champion and a Super Bowl MVP, a guy who has the best rating, the best QBR in the history of the NFL. He is the best quarterback rating in the history of the NFL. And some might say that is the stat that you can rank every quarterback by. Now, I am not saying he is the best quarterback in NFL history, right? But that is a lot of very impressive stats for what he does. Now, we all know Aaron Rodgers, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. But if this really is it, one more season, 20 years of greatness from him, where does he rank all time? Because he is undoubtedly, at least in my mind, a top 5 quarterback in NFL history. You have Tom Brady at the top. You're gonna have guys like Peyton Manning, John Elway. You're going to have guys like Joe Montana, maybe a Steve Young up there as well. But there aren't too many guys that you can confidently list that are ahead of Aaron Rodgers. Maybe eventually we'll say Patrick Mahomes is up there. I don't know how high you're willing to put Patrick Mahomes in his first half of his career right now, but he's not up there all-time stats. I'm not ready to have that conversation yet, but I think Aaron Rodgers is a top 5 quarterback in the history of the NFL. And I don't know how much of a hot take that is, if I'm going to be honest. But the real question we need to ask, and we can appreciate a retirement tour, right? He is the kind of guy that deserves a retirement tour, although people are going to say he does it for attention. People are going to say that he had to come back for one more season because he had to have a retirement tour. He wants to go out like Kobe in the NBA. He wants to go out like LeBron, like Jordan, all of these guys, all of these goats of the sport. People want to know that this is it, like Tom Brady did. They want to have that retirement tour with the guy where you show up and you say, this is his last season. We have to see him play. He's going to give us his best, right? That's a good thing. It's good when incredible athletes go out and have that moment for their team. They have that moment for themselves. I think that is one of the most exciting things in sports, and a 4-time MVP, a Super Bowl champion, and someone that is a top 5 quarterback, a top 5 player at the most important position in the sport, in the history of its sport, going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. He deserves to have a retirement tour. But the question is, because of his framing, is this really it? He says, yeah, I'm pretty sure this is it. That is his quote. Is this really it? Nothing is certain with Aaron Rodgers. We've played this song and dance with him a bunch when he was with the Packers. He said, I might retire. We played this song and dance this offseason. I might retire. I don't really know. This is the most cut and dry that it's been. I'm willing to say, unless he has an MVP-style season, unless he returns to form of pre-COVID, unless he returns to his MVP winning ways or wins a Super Bowl, this is it for Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is done. I don't know if he has that kind of season, if this is really it. He's left the door open for speculation, especially if he likes playing in Pittsburgh. I doubt he goes anywhere else but Pittsburgh. I really do. I think Pittsburgh is his final stop. I believe him when he says that Pittsburgh is his final stop. But the fact that it's the fact that he's still out there, and the fact that he is such a polarizing figure, it's just one of these things that makes it a little bit harder. Makes it a little bit harder for Aaron Rodgers to be to be taken at face value, because he's told us lies in the past about what he's doing. He said, I'm going to retire in the past. This one I believe, though. And if he does retire at the end of this season, if this truly is it for Aaron Rodgers, we have to appreciate what he's done, regardless of what you think of him as a person, regardless of what you think of him off the field, on the field. He is a very, very impressive player. But we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we turn our attention over to the MLB. You've seen it on the break screens here. Our MLB Power Rankings coming up next here on the Triple Threat Show. Brett Show. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Friday, June 27th. If you were just tuning in, we've just finished going over Aaron Rodgers. Will he or won't he retire? In this segment, we finish off our show talking a little bit about some MLB baseball, the MLB power rankings, as we do each and every single Friday. Hot off the presses for you here. We'll go from 30 all the way up to number 1. Starting off at that number 30 position, who else but the Colorado Rockies? That Rockies team is, to say the least, bad. 18 wins halfway through the season. We are halfway through the year at this point. We've reached that 81 game mark here. This is a Rockies team that is flirting with history. The White Sox broke the record last year. They are going for it once again, and there's a real chance that they break it. There is not a lot of good coming out of Colorado right now, and they're going to most likely sell a couple more pieces when it comes to the deadline, whatever still good there is. They have had a couple of breakout bats in the month of June, a little bit of an easier schedule, beating up on the Nationals a little bit, but this is not a good Rockies team by any stretch of the imagination. The White Sox, will not as bad as the Rockies, still down there at the bottom, 29th here in the power rankings here. The Pirates at 28. Paul Skeens, everything else is bad. Other than Paul Skeens, it is not a good look in Pittsburgh. Sell the team over there. At number 27, we have the Athletics. They have moved to a stadium. In fact, they have moved to a minor league stadium over in Sacramento, and they've had a couple of young stars come up. Jacob Wilson is leading shortstops, better than Bobby Witt Jr. in all-star voting, so shout out to him. They've had incredible rookies come up, at least defensively, but it just has not been enough. The pitching has been bad, as expected with the Athletics. They dished out a lot more money, and they broke ground officially in Vegas, but nobody knows how much that is going to cost. They don't know what the plans are going to be. It is going to be a long time before the Athletics are playing in Las Vegas. They're going to be the Sacramento A's for a very, very long time. At number 26, it's the Washington Nationals. The Washington Nationals here, frankly, flatly, have been bad, and they need to fire their manager. Davey has not been good at all. He won them a World Series back in 2019, which is the only reason why he is still here. But other than that, he is gone. He just cannot be trusted to manage a bullpen, and the Nationals have lost to teams like the Marlins, like the Rockies in series back-to-back. The Dodgers, of course, and the Padres. It's just been really bad for the Nationals, despite having three legitimate all-stars in Mackenzie Gore, a MVP-ish candidate in James Wood, and CJ Abrams, who's once again playing at an MVP level. All three guys, side mention, that they got in that Juan Soto trade. 25 goes to the Miami Marlins. The Marlins did catch up to the Nationals and, in fact, pass them, but that's about it for them. They are not very good right now. They are once again a bottom feeder team, and there's just not a lot great to say about that Marlins squad. The Orioles, one of the most disappointing teams, slots in at 24 on our list at the midway point. They are not out of it. They've been a little bit hotter as of late, but they're still way out of the loop when it comes to the playoffs. A hot second half run, if they don't sell too much off, could turn into something, but I'm not holding my hat too high on the Orioles right now. The Royals have a guy in Bobby Witt Jr. They have a couple pitchers in Seth Lugo, like a guy that like that could step up, maybe be a destination, a trade piece in the All-Star at the trade deadline, But this is a Royals team that's really disappointed. A team that went to the playoffs last year. I thought they would be similar, at least. I thought they improved a little bit, but injuries and just regression overall has hit this team hard, despite Bobby Witt Jr. doing his thing once again. The Twins have been on a roller coaster. They were the hottest team in baseball earlier this month. Now they're one of the coldest teams in baseball. They've been going up and down our power rankings like nobody's business. They sit here at 22, but they have been moving like crazy. The biggest movers, if that was a award that we give out, would go to the Twins. The Rangers at 21 are the team that I had at the beginning of the season to win that AL pennant, but everything has gone wrong. The pitching has been good, but the bats have just been cold. I want to believe in this team, but it's getting to the point where they're most likely going to sell, and we're looking at the second disappointing Rangers season in a row after winning the World Series 2 years ago. The Braves, speaking of disappointment, right there at number 20. Their big free agent acquisition has not played. Ronald Acuna has been amazing, but he has not been enough. Now Chris Sale goes down with injury. Spencer Strider has not been enough for them, and this is a Braves team that continues to be near the bottom of the league. They're not out of it yet. They can still turn it around, especially with the way that Acuna's been playing, but the bats really need to get going right now. The Red Sox sit at 19. They haven't been great since the Rafi Devers trade. Shocking what happens when you lose one of your best bats for just about nothing. A team that's pretty much 500 all the time. It'd be cool to have a guy that could hit for a lot of power as a DH. I know it frees up space for your team. You'll get Bregman back soon. Kirsten Campbell had a little bit of a slow start. He's back down in the minors. He'll come back up soon and he'll be fine. But this is a Red Sox team that's just struggling right now. The Angels are not struggling right now, but they're also not that good. We've seen them be hot. They were hot to start the season. They're hot right now. I don't believe in this Angels team too much, although I do like some of the pieces on it. Yusei Kikuchi has been amazing for them this year. I just don't think this is for real, regardless of how many wins they've got right now at this point in the season. The Guardians sit at 17. I believe they're better than the Angels. I just think they're a better team than the Angels. They are a team that has a lot to like. They've got J-Ram, who's constantly up there for MVP voting. I really like the guys that they have brought in. I like what they do. I do. I think this is a Guardians team that's going to be good, going to be better, I should say. They still got a chance to sneak in, but they're not going to win their division. The Reds at 16. I mean, the young guys are hitting, right? The pitchers are getting better. They had a young guy call up. That was a really good debut for the Reds. The pitching staff is getting better. I want to believe in this young Reds core, but they've yet to put it all together year after year after year. The Diamondbacks sit at 15, and I know injuries have hurt them. I still believe in this team. This is a really talented team. They're just in a tough division. They're going to have to find a way to get off the schneid here and make it into the wild card. The Blue Jays sit at 14 as we reach the top half of the league here. The Blue Jays, they're getting Max Scherzer back, and I know he's a little bit older, but getting pitching is going to be huge as the bats came from not the guys you might expect. The big free agent signing, Anthony Santander, has not been great up to halfway through the season. In fact, he's been god-awful. We'll have to see how it goes the rest of the way, but this is a Blue Jays team that's still hanging around. Don't count them out. The Mariners at 13, got 2 words for you for this Mariners team. Big dumper. How about Cal Raleigh? What he's been able to do? Is he an MVP candidate, potentially? Trailing Aaron Judge only in F-WAR. He's up there, 32 home runs. If he matches that in the second half, he's not only going to break the catcher record for home runs, but he's going to break the American League record for home runs that was set by Aaron Judge just a couple of seasons ago. Cal Raleigh could do it. Don't be shocked if he wins the MVP over Aaron Judge, especially if he keeps these power numbers going. The Cardinals are my big surprise team of the season at number 12. They've been really good. I don't know how long this is going to last, if I'm being honest. It seems a little unsustainable, but you have to appreciate what you see out of this Cardinals team that was bad last year, that did not make a lot of changes. They are maybe going to find a way into the playoffs, which I can't believe. At 11, it's the Giants. Bringing in Rafi Devers has been really good for them. They were a great team before. Now they're an even better team. They're competing with the Dodgers and the Padres up there in that division. They've had a little bit of a slump, but still, this is a Giants team that I truly do believe can turn it around and be very, very productive in the future. Getting into the top 10, the San Diego Padres find their way back into the top 10 here. They've been up and down, but the top of that lineup is still amazing. Fernando Tatis is threatening to win National League MVP this season. You have pitchers that are out there doing their thing. This is a really good Padres team. Even if they can't catch the Dodgers, they're going to be a tough out in the playoffs. The Phillies at 9 have struggled a little bit as of late, but I do believe this is a team that if they make that one big trade deadline acquisition, they're back to being World Series contenders, especially with the way that pitching staff is going, especially Zach Wheeler. The Yankees at number 8 have struggled as of late. In fact, the Rays have caught up to them in that division, but this is still a team with Aaron Judge. They still have bats that are hitting pretty solid. They're coming back down to earth from what they were at the beginning of the year, but I think this is a Yankees team that has the ability to turn it around. The Rays at number 7 caught up to the Yankees. They do it Rays style every single year. No reason to count them out ever. They take the small ball. They have the pitchers, the deep farm system that they have, and the Rays into the top 10 at number 7. How about the Brewers at number 6, quietly finding their way back near the top of that NL Central? Mizorowski has been an absolute flamethrower on the mound. He just outdueled Paul Skeens. He might be the best pitcher in the National League right now. It is going to be tough, but he, in limited starts, if he stays healthy, I think is the favorite in my book to win National League Rookie of the Year. The Mets round out or start our top 5, I should say. This is a really good Mets squad. They're only getting better. They struggled a little bit a couple weeks ago, but they're back on their grind. They're back up there. They're winning games again. This is a Mets team that needed to get right, and they will. Injuries to pitching is concerning because that was the concern early on in the season, or at least in the preseason. They had a really good pitching staff, which is why they were so dominant. But this Mets team, their bats are getting better. Pete Alonso has been amazing every single time he steps onto the field, and the Mets still at number 5. Getting to the top row here, the Cubs at number 4. PCA having an MVP breakout season over there. Kyle Tucker having an MVP, not quite kind of season over there, but everything is going right in Wrigleyville in Chicago. Shout out to the Cubs, the opposite of their crosstown component in the White Sox. The Astros have been red hot. Hunter Brown on the mound with the best ERA in the American League. Hunter Brown's been amazing over there. Everything is working. All of the trades that they've made have been incredible. The Astros just keep winning games, regardless of what you throw at them, regardless of who's injured, regardless of Yordan Alvarez being healthy or not. The Astros find ways to win day in and day out. And at our top 2 spots, these 2 teams share 50 wins. The only 2 teams in the MLB with 50 wins, both at 50 and 31. I've got the Tigers at number 2. They've taken a bit of a slump, but the Dodgers are way back at the top. Both of these teams are incredible, and I would say this is the favorite to be the World Series matchup this season halfway through the year. The Dodgers, of course, with Shohei Ohtani, the NL MVP frontrunner. The Tigers, of course, with Tariq Skubal, the AL Cy Young winner, the AL Cy Young frontrunner. Both of those guys won each of those awards respectively last season. No reason why they can't repeat it again. These two teams are stacked. They're playing great baseball, and they're only going to get better at the deadline. But I would love to hear your thoughts. Let me know. Who do I have way too high? Who do I have way too low? What's your top 10, your top 5 in the MLB as we reached the mid-season point? I'd love to hear your thoughts. And thank you, everybody, so much for tuning in to today's episode of the Triple Threat Show. We will be back on Monday, breaking down all of the biggest news from the weekend. We'll keep you updated on sports news on our off days. Again, we are live Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at this time. Can't wait to see you guys all back here then. Have a good one.